Welcome back to the Organic Chemistry Reaction App Devlog. This devlog journals my efforts to make the Organic Chemistry Reaction app OCRA. The app is currently available on itch.io and on Google Play. If you'd like to check them out, there are the QR codes and links in the description. So it's actually been a little while since I've uploaded a devlog, and there's not a lot to talk about. Like I said, I've been slowing down, but I did want to provide one update. Again, you got to keep showing that I'm still working on this, and I have recently released an update to dark mode. So last time I did talk about dark mode, and I demonstrated a working dark mode build, and that version is out, but I found one bug that needed to be fixed, and so I've since released a version 1.0.5.1, which fixes that bug. Basically, there was some text that would start in the dark mode skin, but then if you go to the next screen and then back to the previous screen, it would revert to the light mode skin. And so here you can see on this image, there's the proposer mechanism text and the rating text, which are very hard to see because they're black, because that's the light mode's version of that skin. So that doesn't happen initially when they spawn, but if you go to the next puzzle screen and then back to the previous puzzle screen, then it reverts. So I had to fix that bug. And then the other thing that I tried to change in dark mode and it just didn't work is making it so that the game would load on the first load, because right now you still have to open the program and then close it and then reopen it and then it will work, and I still don't know why, but it's not working. I have to keep trying. We'll get there eventually, I'm sure of it. Here's a quick post-mortem on my efforts to implement dark mode. The long and the short of it is that I had to completely reorganize my code to make it work. I didn't have to rewrite the code exactly, but I had to make a lot of changes, and the whole process kind of exposed the inherent weaknesses in my code. It's not really structured to make this level of change, or it is, but it's not well done, I guess. I knew these weaknesses were in the code because this is basically the first thing I've ever made, and so, I can't do it perfectly first try. So I knew these weaknesses were there, but I hadn't really felt their effects so strongly until this update. And one of the major reasons why I want to remake this game in Godot is because I want to be able to rewrite the code in a more sensible manner. Now that I sort of have a practice on making this game, I can remake it and make cleaner code, get rid of the mistakes, things like that. And hopefully with a newer code that's more structured more logically, that can facilitate further growth in the game. Because there are other big additions to this game that I want to add, and I'll talk about some of those later. None of them are high priorities, but dark mode is not the only major update. And my current code is just not structured to make that easy for me. And dark mode, I think, exposed that. And so I was right. I was hoping I didn't have to rework my code in Construct and that I could just, leave the Construct version the same and just rewrite code using Godot. That didn't actually happen with dark mode. I had to do a lot of reworking. But it did confirm to me that I actually need to remake my game. I need to rebuild the game in a more sensible way to facilitate growth. So, yeah, Godot is a good idea. IMO. Alright, so with that out of the way, here are some of my shorter term goals. So in the Construct build, I will continue to add puzzles, as I do. These puzzles are simple XML files that will be totally usable in any version of this game, including the Godot build. So it's not a waste of time for me to be making more puzzles because they will apply to any version of this game one-to-one. And if it doesn't, then that's my failure. Also in Construct, I think I want to implement a couple of arrow drawing quality of life improvements. I think I'll talk more about that in the next devlog, but I recently had an epiphany that should significantly improve the user experience when solving puzzles, because I know right now there's a lot of misclicking, I guess we'll call it. I don't exactly know what you call clicking on touches, but like mistouching doesn't sound great. But anyway, I know there's a lot of errors, and it's not user error, it's the game is not doing what the user expects it to. I know how to fix that, and I'll talk about that next time. And hopefully I will implement that into the construct version of the game, because I think it's a pretty high priority. It should get out there, and it's not a difficult fix. So that's my plan for construct. In Godot, my goal is to remake this game, but hopefully better. Yeah. How's that for a short-term goal? Just remake everything, no big deal. I have made a little bit of progress on this, but I need to find my motivation. And I will soon, because I can feel my motivation welling. It'll get there. Now for the longer term goals. But first I want to be clear about why I'm choosing now to remake OCRA. As discussed earlier, the current code is breaking as I implement new features, particularly the larger features, and that's a big problem. But more importantly to me this is something that I said in an earlier devlog. More importantly to me is that I'm actually very happy with the game as it is currently. It does everything I want it to. So it's basically a finished product, minus having 10 million puzzles that you can redo over and over and over again without it feeling stale. So basically, the game's done. In a usable state, it's a minimum viable product. It's better than a minimum viable product, in my opinion. So these really long-term goals, I'm fine with pushing them back because I don't view them as critical to the success of the app. And that's why I can choose now to remake the game and make it better. So these long-term goals are not something that I view as critical to the game. They're not very important to me. They will undoubtedly make the game better, but it's just that I'm comfortable setting these aside for a really, really long time if I need to, and I need to while I rewrite the game in Godot. So it's just a really good time for me to rewrite the game in addition to observing the problems of the code breaking. So yeah, that's the real reason why I'm switching to Godot right now. It's just because it's the right time. Anyway, back to future features. I want to implement interactive tutorials. I also want users to be able to customize puzzles that the game gives them so that they can select only carbonyl reactions, for example, or only SN1, SN2 reactions. I also recently received a request for this feature, so I know it's something that people want. It's just going to take a while before we get there. Sorry. I also hope to implement puzzle explanations so that if you get a puzzle wrong, the game can actually tell you why it's wrong. The current show answer feature will help you figure that out maybe, because you can see an arrow gets drawn. You're like, oh, okay, that was what they was going for. Now I get it. But sometimes you see the error and you just still don't understand. So yeah, even though the current show answer feature helps you figure it out, maybe the full explanation would still be more helpful. For example, an explanation for why you got a puzzle wrong could be like, tert butyl groups are very bulky, and this steric hindrance prevents the oxygen from acting as a nucleophile for SN2 substitution reactions. Therefore, the tert butoxide anion will act as a strong base instead of as a nucleophile, and this will result in an E2 reaction rather than an SN2 reaction. And so if the player reads that in the game after getting this puzzle involving tert butoxide anions, then maybe they can actually learn from the game more directly than if they were just told your answer is wrong, here's the right answer. That's cumbersome to implement and maybe a little bit difficult to do well, but that's why it's a future feature and not a current feature. I'd also like to implement other game modes, similar to other puzzle modes that are available in chess puzzle software. One example of this is a puzzle rush type game mode where you start with easy puzzles and the puzzles get harder and harder and harder until you get too many wrong, and then when you get too many wrong, the game stops. So your goal is to solve as many puzzles as you can before the game ends and then reach a higher score. So the more puzzles you solve, the higher your score is, and that's sort of the goal. And it's just a different change of pace than, just constantly grinding out puzzles the way it is right now. So that's an example of a future mode. Yeah, this isn't a super important feature, but it's something that I'm thinking about for the future. I'd also like to provide some user experience upgrades for puzzle screens, such as smart arrow pathing, so that arrows aren't drawn in perfect arcs and instead are drawn more the way that real chemists would draw them, so that they don't just overlap with the molecules in awkward ways. I don't exactly know how to do this, but that's why it's a future feature. It seems like it's going to be difficult for me to figure it out, but it's something that I want. Also, maybe like a camera option so that you can zoom in and zoom out or drag as you needed, so that if you have a really big molecule, you can zoom out to see the whole thing and then zoom in to the part of that molecule that you need to solve the puzzle. Right now, I have some large molecules in the game that actually just don't fit in the screen. But also, sometimes the bonds feel like they're too small and the atoms feel like they're too small, and that makes it harder to select the right bond or select the right atom when you're drawing your answers, causing you to get the wrong answer even though you were trying to input the right answer. But yeah, that's another thing that I'm going to work on in the future. I've also talked about going online, having a dedicated website and an online puzzle database, and then user accounts could be stored as data in the cloud somewhere, whatever. And then you can use that to track user progress, track strengths and weaknesses, whatever. If you can track your data, you might be able to find out, hey, I'm not very good at Diels-Alder reactions. Maybe that's something that I need to practice. Or, hey, I'm really good at ester hydrolysis. I don't need to worry about, practicing that one or whatever. Stats like that, just to help. Again, I'm looking to chess websites here for inspiration. And so you can, again, maybe see where I'm going with this if you just look at like Lichess or chess.com or anything like that. And you'll sort of apply the chemistry puzzles to that website and you'll understand what I'm trying to go for. Yeah, I was actually going to talk a little bit more during this devlog, but I get the sense that I've done enough talking for one video. So I'll save the rest for next time. And thanks for listening. And remember, download the app, rate it 5-star, tell your friends, tell your professors, tell your students to do the same. That way I can make the big bucks. See ya.